Good morning and welcome to our morning briefing presented by Community Bank. I'm Jeff Catula, president of the Washington County Chamber of Commerce. There's no question that the natural gas industry has had a tremendous impact on our economy and job opportunities, not only in Pennsylvania, but in our nation. And this morning, it's my pleasure to welcome David Callahan, the new president of the Marcellus Shale Coalition. David, good morning.
Good morning, Jeff. It's great to be with you today.
Well, we appreciate your time this morning and in speaking with our members and other members of the business community in southwestern Pennsylvania. David, I know you're the new president of the MSC. Can you maybe talk a little bit about your background and how your career path has led you here?
Certainly. Thanks, Jeff. And again, thank you for the opportunity to be here with you today, and thanks to your members for tuning in. I've had roughly a 30-year career in advocacy and government relations, primarily focused in Pennsylvania and a few of our surrounding states. The majority of that time I've spent in the energy industry, working with natural gas utilities, interstate pipelines, natural gas marketers, and others. But for the last 10 years or so, I've worked very closely in and around the Marcellus Shale Coalition. I was actually an employee for a couple of years, and I went off after a couple of years and worked with a couple of their members, including MPLX and the producer JKLM Energy. So and during that process, I've worked very closely with the MSC, serving in a number of leadership positions and working very, very closely with my predecessor and friend, Dave Spiegelmeyer.
Well, David, I know you and I, our paths have crossed a few times with some events, and I was happy to see you received the position. So again, congratulations.
Thank you. And again, I can't thank you enough, Jeff, for the partnership that you've exhibited and the cooperation with the industry. And it's just been phenomenal throughout the years, whether it's hosting individual events, doing events like this, supporting our conference at Shale Insight. The partnership with the Washington County Chamber has been phenomenal.
I certainly appreciate those kind comments. We value our. Start this morning with talking a little bit about the state of the industry, both locally, perhaps regionally, and on a national scale.
Certainly. Well, we could look back at last year and see that the industry produced in Pennsylvania 7 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. And I know that that sounds like a big number, but to put it in context, that's enough gas to supply all the residences in the United States for one full year. Pennsylvania is the second largest producer of natural gas, second only to Texas. However, when you combine us with our friends and regional neighbors in Ohio and West Virginia, the Appalachia region would be the #1 producer of natural gas in the region. We've seen, a bit of a slowdown in the industry. We're a commodity-based business, and commodity-based businesses are cyclical, but there are positive signs on the horizon. The U.S. Department of Energy's Energy Information Administration projects some recovery in prices at the later part of this year. We saw strength in terms of the industry in supporting the pandemic, in supporting efforts to recover from and deal with the pandemic, whether it's supplying natural gas to support hospitals and medical facilities, and also from natural gas liquids. I know that Washington County is in the heart of natural gas liquid territory, and those liquids are the building blocks for many, many elements of personal protective equipment, whether it's gloves, syringes, masks, visors, and things, as well as the actual syringes and medications used to deal with the pandemic. So, we've got a lot going on. We've recovered from the pandemic and are in the process of recovering. And I would say, Jeff, from a regional and statewide perspective, the industry is here. We're prepared to help in an effort to reshore manufacturing back to this state, back to this country. The pandemic showed us that we're absolutely vulnerable. Our supply chains are vulnerable to having manufacturing and processing of raw goods and materials in other countries. We have a tremendous workforce in Pennsylvania. We have a great energy, abundant, clean, affordable energy here, and we have great access to markets. We have all that we need to bring a lot of those manufacturing jobs back to Pennsylvania.
I couldn't agree more with you on that statement. The effort to reshore our manufacturing not only, of course, creates jobs, but it's important for our national security efforts as well. And I know actually during the pandemic too, the natural gas industry, the production companies and the secondary and tertiary suppliers were really up front in helping and volunteering their time to local hospitals, local clinics to help with the pandemic. And I want to compliment you and your members on doing a wonderful job and volunteering and providing not only your resources, but your time as well. So please pass that along to your members as well. In Washington County, David, we like to say that the power to prosper is right under our feet with our natural gas resources, but it doesn't do us any good remaining there. So I'd like to hear your thoughts a little bit on the development of our energy infrastructure, primarily pipelines, and getting that gas to market. What do you think the opportunities and challenges are?
Well, there are always tremendous opportunities. We need to get gas to market. We need to get gas where it's needed, whether it's to manufacturing facilities, residential communities, or even LNG export facilities. The challenges are any number of regulatory hurdles that need to be cleared. The challenges are some items that are tied up in the courts. Just a couple of weeks ago, a very important pipeline project in eastern PA called the Penn East Project found itself in the middle of a Supreme Court hearing where the state of New Jersey is battling with the federal government over eminent domain. We have other big important projects in Western PA as well, including the Mountain Valley Pipeline, which I think by all estimates is well over 90% complete. However, it's facing hurdles in getting those last few elements completed in dealing with whether it's permitting issues, judicial issues, you name it. Those pipelines are very important, and gas infrastructure in general is just as important, if not more so, than any other infrastructure in the country, whether it's roads, bridges, airports, mass transit facilities. Gas is essential to our daily lives. It's essential to our essentials in our lives, as well as the comforts of our life. We really need to get these projects going. Now, I mentioned a couple of what we'd call greenfield projects, new ground broken for new pipelines. There's also any number of very important modernization projects, whether you're just replacing pipeline or increasing the capacity of compressor stations and doing other things to ensure that more gas gets to market through existing lines or existing rights of way. They're all very important.
And I'll also suggest too that the development of our pipeline system is probably the safest way to transport this resource. Is that correct?
It is absolutely the safest way. It's not discounting other ways to get gas and natural gas liquids to market, but it is clearly the safest way. And I think we heard U.S. Department of Energy Secretary Granholm mention something about that just within the last day or so, affirming that point. What also goes with that, Jeff, though, is the great jobs that are associated with it. And a lot of those jobs going to our friends and allies in the construction trades. They've been great partners. They do tremendous work. And so there are a lot of great opportunities for people to work in the industry thanks to the construction trades on projects dealing with infrastructure and pipelines.
I'm also glad you brought up LNG exports. There's been several schools of thought on that. Some that we should keep the natural resources domestically, others that we should be exporting it to our allies and partners across the oceans. What's the MSC's position on that, and where do you stand?
Well, LNG exports are an essential part of our business. They're great for the worldwide. LNG exports are a tremendous way to address global energy poverty. An estimated 3 billion people in this world live in energy poverty. There are nations, developing nations, that can benefit immensely from natural gas from the United States, not just economically, but environmentally. Some of these countries are using sources of energy that are unreliable. They're using sources of energy that are unhealthy. US LNG has an opportunity to improve not just the economic performance, but the environmental performance of countries across the world. And again, Secretary Granholm herself noted the importance of this in her confirmation hearings back in February. LNG can play a significant role in reducing CO2 emissions worldwide.
Turning your attention a little bit to the Biden administration and their stance on natural gas. And we're hearing some kind of varying accounts of how the president and his administration are viewing the natural gas industry. Some confrontational, some kind of something that we, as part of our energy portfolio moving forward. How can, first of all, what's the MSC's working with the administration on these efforts? Also, too, we've also noticed that sometimes there's just a disconnect between the understanding of the natural gas industry and its positive impacts. How do you see that, and kind of perhaps help us clear the air a little bit on where you see the Biden administration stance?
Well, we were certainly disappointed in the initial actions of the Biden administration to cancel Keystone XL and eliminate anywhere from 10 to 11,000 good paying, again, primarily union jobs in the process, as well as instituting what they call a pause on new federal leasing for oil and gas production. All that does, that pause, while it doesn't impact PA directly, all that does is that it means that production will be displaced by production from other countries, perhaps most likely, production that is not done under world-class regulations like we have in this country. Again, not improving the environment, actually to the detriment of the environment. We hope that the administration understands the facts about natural gas, the benefits, again, not just the economic, but the environmental benefits that accrue to not just Pennsylvania, but the country and the world, thanks to the increased use of natural gas. We've seen in Pennsylvania incredible strides in emissions reductions in the power sector, thanks to increased use of natural gas. CO2 emissions have dropped 40% from their high in 2005. Other emissions, criteria emissions like sulfur oxide dropped 93% in the power sector since then. Nitrogen oxide dropped 81% since then. Just phenomenal progress. And so when the Biden administration comes out with broad goals and very, very aggressive goals for reducing CO2 emissions and other emissions, I'm hard pressed to think of how that can be accomplished without natural gas and without an understanding that what we've achieved so far is largely due to natural gas. This morning, just early this morning, as a matter of fact, 5:30 a.m., I took a look at my phone. I've got a handy app there from the PJM power grid. And you can look there, you could look there and see the source of generation in the whole grid, the grid that extends from New Jersey all the way out to Illinois. So at that time, say 5:30 this morning, natural gas, 36% of all production or power production in the grid at that time. Nuclear, roughly 36%. And when you combine natural gas, nuclear, and coal, well over 95, 96%. We need these fuels for the backbone of the power grid, for the reliability of the power grid, and the resiliency of the power grid to deal with problems.
And I would also argue, too, that the increased usage of natural gas in power generation has also helped keep prices lower for the consumer, both on industrial and residential sides.
You're absolutely right. I mean, we have data that suggests that, or shows, that wholesale electric prices since 2008, when the industry was deregulated largely, dropped 40%. In terms of natural gas prices or wholesale prices that your natural gas distribution company pays to purchase that gas that is eventually delivered to you, the price drop in that has been unbelievably dramatic, if I could use an awkward phrase. Those prices have dropped depending on which natural gas distribution company serves you. Those wholesale prices have dropped anywhere from 66 to 85% since 2008. Tremendous savings, and it allows those natural gas distribution companies to do more things in terms of upgrading their infrastructure and providing more services for their customers as well.
We're with David Callahan, the new president of the Marcellus Shale Coalition. And I'd like to remind our viewers this morning that you can ask questions using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. David, we talked a little bit you mentioned a little bit about future technologies, things of that nature. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts about hydrogen and carbon capture. Those two technologies have been very prominent. We hosted a conference in Washington County a few weeks ago on those very subjects. Tell us about your thoughts with those technologies on the future of the industry?
Well, a day doesn't go by that you don't see some sort of newspaper article report on developments in terms of carbon capture or new and different ways to utilize hydrogen. They represent technological advancements in the utilization of natural gas and other fuels. You know, in the case of carbon capture in our backyard here, Nettle is working on all sorts of projects meant to bring carbon capture to fruition and make it more commercially viable. In terms of hydrogen, there are reports that suggest that it has great promise in terms of providing clean or cleaner fuels in industries where electricity or you know the current power grid just can't reach, such as aviation, shipping, heavy trucking, you know, cement manufacturing, and others. Now, that hydrogen, right now, 99% of hydrogen comes from fossil fuels. 95% of that is from natural gas. The only other option to get hydrogen is from electrolysis, splitting water. Now, I'm going way out over my skis here, but splitting water into the hydrogen and oxygen, into hydrogen and oxygen. Doing it that way, while some may say it's cleaner, it's the best way to do it, is not commercially viable. It requires 11% more power than using methane or natural gas as the source, and it requires 2 times the amount of water than using steam and other methods to use on natural gas to extract that hydrogen. But what this all comes down to, though, is, look, there are many ways to utilize natural gas and other fossil fuels in the future. I'm going to use a quote from West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin. What we need from the federal government and from our state government, and to a degree local governments when they're looking at these issues, is we need innovation and not elimination. We can't just outright say, no more of this, no more of that. We can't shut off these great sources of fuel, these great sources of national and energy security. We have to be continually looking for improvements in how we produce, transport, and utilize these products. And those things have been going on since day one in the shale industry, and they will continue as long as the government or governments allows it to continue. I have faith in the private sector. You have members of your own who are working on these things, who are doing things every day to improve the operations and the environmental profile of the industry and industries. I have great faith in that.
Well, that's well stated, especially the quote from the senator. David, would you mind if we take a few questions? We have several coming in from some of our viewers, and would you mind if we took a few right now?
Please, let's go right ahead.
Our first is concerning the Shell cracker plant. And when will the Shell cracker plant start production, if you happen to know that? And of course, how can we work with the cracker plant to help attract manufacturing to the Commonwealth?
It's great. You know, the Shell petrochemical facility is a great example of the tremendous promise of this great natural gas resource that we have in the state. It's not just about utilizing it in its natural state, natural gas. It's about utilizing those natural gas liquids, again, that we have very prominently in the natural gas in Washington County and other areas of Western PA. I've seen published reports that say that the facility should be open at some point in 2022. And from that point, we have tremendous opportunities to secure further downstream manufacturers that utilize the products that they'll be creating. Again, to go back to a point that I made earlier about natural gas liquids and how they played a significant role and will play a significant role in recovering from the pandemic. You know, those very elemental building blocks that are in the methane stream, whether it's propane, butane, ethane, isobutane, or even pentanes natural gasolines, those few elements, are the source of any number of multitude of elements and chemicals and substances that make our modern lives possible. And that Shell facility is a step along the way to bring a lot of that manufacturing of those products back to this region. It has tremendous promise.
I agree with you on that. It'll also help with your earlier comments concerning, reshoring a lot of our manufacturers as well. A second question along that line, have you heard of any future developments of another cracker plant in the Ohio Valley?
Sure, we've all seen published reports about the proposed facility West of us, the PTT Global facility that I don't believe they've reached a final investment decision, but I know that your counterparts in Ohio are working feverishly, to help ensure that they make a decision, a favorable decision soon. The site is ready. The state and local governments have done a great job of getting the site ready. It's just a matter of getting a final investment decision. We know that there's enough ethane in the ground, enough ethane in the natural gas in this region, again, in the Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia region, to support additional petrochemical facilities. And the entire region can only benefit from more of these facilities.
Another question that has come in, and this concerns drilling multiple wells from a single pad. Now, we understand, of course, that it has not only been made it more financially viable for our producers to drill, but also has lessened the impact on the environment when you drill several wells from one pad. Could you talk about that in terms of the industry and its impact on the environment as well, long term?
Certainly. Utilizing well pads and utilizing horizontal drilling to reach areas of production that are anywhere from 1 mile, 2 miles, 3 miles. I think I saw a report late last year indicating that one of the drilling companies achieved a lateral length of 4 miles or more. And doing that from a single well pad, doing that for multiple wells allows you to produce tremendous quantities of natural gas with a very, very small surface footprint. It's all very, very advanced. It all goes in, the fact that you have people sitting, up above ground with a little joystick directing the drill bit, reaching the sweet spot miles away is just tremendous technological advancements. And again, these advancements continue. More is being done to make it more efficient, to reach more natural gas, to produce it more efficiently and more environmentally consciously. So the fewer well pads you have, the fewer access roads you have, the more that you can concentrate activity on that one well pad is better for the environment, better for the surface owner. And there are opportunities there to reach areas that would otherwise be unreachable. Some companies and some folks are actively talking with the state about, we could produce more natural gas under state lands without actually having a drill pad on state land. Just another example of technological advancement in the industry.
Our next question is concerning the governor's continued call for a severance tax on the industry. As you know, David, that is something the county chamber is fully against. We already have an impact tax on the industry as well, which we believe is going directly to the communities that are experiencing natural gas drilling. I know, of course, that you guys are against it as well, but the question really is that we have this fight every year. It's almost as soon as the buds come on back on the trees in the spring, the governor, of course, is talking about a severance tax. How can we work, maybe change the question a little bit, how can we work closer with the governor to convince him that of the positive impacts the industry is having without an additional tax to scare away investment?
Well, I want to first of all thank you again for your advocacy on that issue. It's instrumental and it's very important in sharing with government officials that it's not just the industry talking about the detrimental impacts of a severance tax on top of the severance tax we already have. This summer we'll reach the $2 billion mark in terms of revenue raised from the impact fee, again, our severance tax. And those dollars, if folks want to look at the MSC's website, we have a blog post from a week or so ago indicating some of the projects that have been funded with the impact fee. These dollars are being well spent in the communities. They're supporting infrastructure projects. They're supporting, parks and all sorts of things all over the state. What we need is an understanding of what we could utilize the most is more cooperation on economic development with individuals like yourself. I know you're doing all you can do to attract people to the region, to attract people to Washington County. We need that more from the state and from other governments and other folks as well to bring those opportunities to the state and therefore increase tax revenues overall for the state and for local governments.
We've seen that here in Washington County, and we like to pride ourselves on public-private partnerships within Washington County, not only with county government, but also with industries that are supporting and helping to grow our county. So, that's something that's we've tried to impress as well. What you said is just how to work with officials to show them the impact and that the industry is already having without scaring away future investment. And in that line too, the MSC and the Chamber share a lot of common members, but we also share a lot of smaller members that are also benefiting, from the natural gas industry as well. So this is an interesting question about how can we as a chamber and the county of a whole support your efforts?
I couldn't have, geez, was this a plant? I have no idea. That's a tremendous thing. We have on our we have on our website, we're rolling it out slowly and softly, United Shale Advocates. It's something that will allow supporters of the many benefits of natural gas, the many economic and environmental benefits of natural gas, to gather together and show that there is strength in numbers, to show our legislators, to show our government officials, to show our state government officials and others that you believe in the promise of this product, you see the many benefits, and you want them to support it as well. I would heartily encourage people to take a look at our website, and we'll be enhancing that portion of the website to get more and more people to sign up and to promote certain activities to show their support.
David, we have a few moments left, and I would like to have you discuss for our remaining time Shale Insight, which I understand is coming back at the end of September this year as a live event. And I'd love to have you talk about that a little bit.
Thank you. Yes, and yes, we did do Shale Insight last year. It was a virtual event, wildly successful in the virtual world, but we're happy that we'll be going to a live event this year. Shale Insight this year will be held September 28th through 30th at the Erie Bayfront Convention Center up in Erie. And, we have tremendous opportunity to hear from bipartisan government officials. We're going to have the best of the best in terms of industry leaders, folks involved in the industry who support the industry by providing goods and services. We have technology showcases. Our labor friends and allies will be there in force as well. It's a great opportunity to not only see all facets of the industry, but to learn more as well. And saying anything about Shale Insight, I just have to stop there and thank you for your continued support for Shale Insight. You've been there for us year in and year out. The Washington Chamber and you personally, Jeff, have been great supporters of Shale Insight. And you're an essential part of that experience year in and year out.
I appreciate you saying that. The Chamber believes that Shale Insight is one of the premier conferences and natural gas events in the nation, and we're happy to support that. But David, we're also happy to support your efforts and the continuing efforts to support natural gas in our Commonwealth and nation. And I want to thank you, David Callahan, the president of the Marcellus Shale Coalition, for being with us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great day, Jeff, and all your members as well.
David. And thank you to Community Bank for being our continuing sponsor of this event, as well as all of you that tuned in this morning for this important conversation. Thank you for supporting the Chamber, and have a wonderful day.